Good afternoon. Oh, you see, I'm not supposed to walk around. He said that if I walked around, that I'd get into some trouble. But any of you who've ever had me an instructor know that do I follow instructions? Do I have to walk around? By definition, I do. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bob Francis, Acting Dean of Social Science, Library, and Parent-Child Center. And I am also occasionally a lecturer for the Global Affairs Center. And in a previous life, I was an econ professor and international studies professor. I will be teaching I see Professor Dodd in the back there, in the winter quarter, International Studies 200. It is a great pleasure that I get to introduce today's debate. The very first thing is I have to talk a little bit about some housekeeping details. If you have a question, write it on the question card in your program. Then you will have an opportunity to ask those questions after the panelists make their arguments. There is also a feedback section in your program. Please take a moment to fill this out and tell us what you liked or disliked about today's program. We do read these things. They are important to us. So if you can, please take that time to do that. Well, it's good to see all these extra people coming in, and hopefully our debaters are getting more and more nervous as we... but at least you won't be distracted by late arrivers, I hope. Today's debate is entirely a production of the members of the Worldly Philosophers and Dismal Scientists Society, commonly known as WPDSS. This student club, as one of the oldest student clubs here at Shoreline, at least been around for 25 years and is clearly had tremendous impact over the years. They meet regularly to talk about the current political and economic social events, both on the national level and on the international level. Less than a year ago, the club, including some of the members here today, organized a similar debate on the Affordable Care Act, what some of you know as Obamacare. I expect that today's debate will enhance some of your understanding of the foreign policy acumen of the two candidates for presidents. And it will be no less skillful nor informative. So if you are eligible to vote in the United States and have not yet voted, how many of us have voted? Good to see. Those people who didn't vote early are discovering that things like Sandy can get in your way for that. But you will, I think, begin to have a greater understanding of the two candidates. For those of you who are not from the United States, this is a chance for you to begin to understand how the election could potentially impact your home country. And it would be a great place for you to ask some specific questions to our debaters. So that said, at this point, I would like to turn the microphone over to Bradley Brown, who will moderate the debate, starting by introducing the panelists.
All right. Thank you, Bob. I'm happy to return as the moderator after last year's debate. Our team members over here have been working for near a month, researching as they can with the student schedule their assigned candidates. I'd like to welcome back to the debate Zach Curtis, who will be representing the Obama side with Napat Tatioret. I would like to thank Terry Taylor, who made himself available as an academic advisor to them in their efforts to research this subject. On the Governor Romney side, we have Kampong Thuisak, the student body president, and Nick Pera, a long-term member of Whoopendis. They were supported by Paul Herrick, making himself available for their side. All right, we have a series of questions. Each will be asked first from me to both parties. That will be followed by questions that will be specific and provided by one side asked to the other. And then we'll provide a time for audience questions, after which we'll have closing remarks from each team. We did do a coin toss about a week ago to determine which side will go first in opening remarks, and I would like to turn the floor over to the Obama side for them to open up the debate.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Professor Larry Field and Global Affairs Center for organizing this event. Thank you, Whoopendis Club, for cooperating with GAC and being a part of this debate. Zachary and I represent our President Obama in this debate. We believe that the most important characteristic that our president should have is to be a person who believes in global community. Obama believes in bringing the world together to find solutions. During the crisis in Libya, Obama allowed UN to do its job, and through negotiation with United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973 passed calling for an enforced no-fly zone. The resolution was proposed by France, Lebanon, and the UK, not the United States. Although Obama helped clear the resolution and helped to resolve strong. Under President Obama, we are strengthening our ties with our allies and using our combined forces to take down our enemies. However, President Obama's focus on cooperation has not restrained him when considering our national defense. Osama bin Laden's former terrorist network, Al-Qaeda, is the U.S. #1 enemy and greater threat than any country or nation. President Obama took it as the U.S. interest to go after the terrorists without asking the UN to interfere. Obama considered receiving the Nobel Prize a call to action, a call for all nations to confront the common challenges to the 21st century. Obama ended the war in Iraq, the war he inherited from President Bush. Moreover, he is ending the war in Afghanistan in 2014. These acts give us reason to believe that President Barack Obama will lead us towards a goal of peace in another 4 years. On the other hand, Governor Romney believes in America returning to hegemony power, achieved mostly with the use of military. We can see from his proposed policies. Governor Romney will increase the budget for military spending, an increase which the military is not asking for. He is questioning President Obama on withdrawing troops from Iraq. He is suggesting that we should arm the rebel groups in Syria with heavy weapons. One of the programs needed right now in the wake of Hurricane Sandy destruction is FEMA, and Governor Romney is planning to cut it.
All right, thank you. We'll now turn the microphone over to the Romney side for their opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kanpong, and this Nick. We represent the Governor Romney side. We strongly believe that the American military powers is the vital tool for the preservation of our security, our peace around the world, and our strength from the American military has protected the development of democracy, enhancing stability, and providing new allies, partners in the cause of peace and freedom. That's why Governor Romney proposed the budget increase in defense budget. Because of the American military power, the United States was able to stand in the opposition to brutal and aggressive communist dictatorship after World War II. Because of strong military power of Americans, we could turn around the Soviet missile on their way to Cuba. It is America today that patrol and the global commons and keep them safe from trade and commerce. It is America today that is working to extinguish terrorism around the world. President Obama in the office with military in serious need of modernization. President Obama is too serious to modern the society. He has already made cut to defense budget by $487 billion, and now he's going to propose. He also already proposed and signed into law a budget process that will result in an additional of $492 billion of defense cuts over the next 10 years. And what this is going to do is that it's going to reduce American military power to be able to protect the security and peace around the world. That's why the Governor Romney proposed to increase defense budgets to ensure that our military is capable to protect the need. Romney will ensure that our military capacity are matched to interests and we need to protect. Romney said in his campaign that a weak America and America in decline, America that retreats from its responsibility would bring us an era of uncertainty and danger. Mid-plan is first for United States and for all of those everywhere who believe in the cause of freedom. Romney proposed to increase the defense budgets to ensure that our world stay peaceful and we can continue promoting the democracy in countries around the world.
Thank you. The next section will be questions directed to both candidates. In following with the order, the Romney side will respond first. Each side will have 2 minutes to respond until we move on to the next question. So in regard to Iran internationally, over the last year, tensions have been increasing between U.S. and Iran, the international community and Iran, over the issue of their nuclear weapons program. How does your platform plan to handle the situation, and how will the threat that Israel perceives to themselves and their advocacy for intervening factor into that equation?
Let me just start by saying that the president of Iran has been adapting a anti-Semitic genocidal atmosphere towards Israel, and that's the biggest problem, I think. Under the Geneva Convention, for the Article 3 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide, we will indict Ahmadinejad, and we will do everything we can to stop the reception that he's received around the world. We will try to bar him from any kind of foreign capitals, and as well as meeting with foreign leaders. We feel that's the first step to alienating Iran and getting them to ditch their nuclear program. The next step that we will do is we will put all military options on the table. The Obama administration has repeatedly failed to show that they will have any kind of military repercussions against Iran. They have pursued economic sanctions, and that is it. They have done everything they can to show, and that has allowed Iran to fear nothing when it comes to American retaliation against their program. We will work with our allies in the Middle East to not only inform them of Iran's capabilities, we will also conduct naval exercises in the Middle East with our allies in order to display our power, and this is a way that we feel that Iran will be less likely to use any of the nuclear capabilities if they are developed. As far as Israel goes, we stand with Israel 100%, and a threat to Israel is a threat to the United States. Israel is one of our biggest allies in the world, and they are by far our biggest ally in the region. And we believe that any threat against them, either worded or actual threat, will be met with the full force of the United States government, United States military. We think that Iran's threat of a nuclear program is endangering to the entire world. Thank you.
And to the Obama side, what is your response to that question?
Okay, let me say this.
You gotta hold the mic.
17 out of 20 of Mitt Romney's advisors are President Bush advisors, the neoconservative agenda advisors. He is proposing to use military against them, to threaten them with military. Do you think that it is? He said he will tighten the sanctions. What he planned with military is he will do the same thing with Iraq and Afghanistan. He will bring the military in and occupy them. And with Iran uranium, they have no weapons to put the uranium in to launch the nuclear. So they can't do anything right now. If they start building the weapons to launch the nuclear, we will know it and we will stop them.
Furthermore, we'd like to add that our economic sanctions are working. Their economy is crippled. Their currency doesn't have the value it used to have. Slowly but surely, we're squeezing them into a place where they're going to have to either accept our demands to get rid of, to no longer pursue nuclear weapons, or just become an entirely rogue state. And I think to say that failing to bring the military in sooner just shows that the Romney campaign still has an outdated Cold War mentality when it comes to dealing with other nations. Thank you.
Okay, the next side will be answered by the Obama platform first. There are many conflicts going on in the Middle East. Middle East conflict has been a terrible thing in the world for the last many generations. Currently, we have Israel and Palestine in conflict, Syria in a civil war, as well as further dissent in Egypt over the recently elected representatives that they have in their country. What will you do to affect peace in the Middle East?
Pardon me. Okay, the Middle East is in a very turbulent period in its history, and the Arab Spring represents a challenge that no American president has ever had to face. President Obama, when he came into office, had lofty goals about reshaping the image of the world into a more just and noble kind of society. And the roadblocks that he's encountered on his way to achieving this goal have been monumental. And so what we've seen is a switch from this promise to change the world. Instead of doing it in grand, sweeping gestures, he's being very pragmatic about it and doing simple, modest things. What's important to understand is that the Arab Spring is not about the U.S. And in fact, more often than not, the more we stay out of it, the better we'll do in the long run. That leaves us open to negotiations with whatever parties regain power in that region. He's leaving our options open. He's trying to help our allies and depose dictators in the name of democracy. And he's done a fairly good job of this. He hasn't gotten the U.S. into another war, which was very likely given some of the scenarios we encountered. And he's done a good job of using our military in the support of international coalition efforts so that America is not bearing the entire brunt of these conflicts. I think that focus on teamwork, that focus on global community is what's going to keep us flexible in the coming years.
And to the Romney side, what is your response to that question?
Well, first of all, is Israel not our biggest ally in the Middle East? dictatorships that have been disposed did work with Israel and were a big part of working with Israel for us. I mean, obviously it's great that the dictatorships were overthrown, but we need to ensure that Israel is still protected above all else. So we need to be negotiating with these new regimes that are coming into place in order to support Israel. As far as Syria goes, we need to be helping the rebels, assisting the rebels in overthrowing Assad. Over 35,000 people have been murdered and killed in this conflict, while the United States has only adapted, the UN's proposal in terms of what they were going to be doing with that. We would be working directly with the rebels in order to arm them, help them overthrow Assad, and then once Assad is overthrown and a democratic voting base has taken place, we'll do everything we can to promote that democracy and keep that democracy in place. As far as Israel goes with their conflict with Palestine, what we want to do is we want to keep a democratic, prosperous nation on both sides, while it seems the Obama administration has forced Israel to make concessions to Palestine in all peace agreements. And while Palestine really gives up nothing, it seems he wants to distance us from Israel in order to gain negotiating points in the Arab world. And we will not ever do anything to compromise the security of Israel or compromise our relationship with Israel. Finally, we don't think that the current administrations in the Middle East really do anything to do, or not really doing anything to quell this hatred that is felt towards Israel. And we think that that's a big problem. So like I said, we'll be working with the nations in the Middle East that are...
All right, thank you. China is our largest single trading partner economically with the U.S., but they're often described as an opponent. How will you respond to trade imbalances between the U.S. and China amidst accusations of currency manipulation and violations of intellectual property rights? And what concerns do you have of China's continued military buildup? Specifically, how would a poor relationship with China affect the state of Washington's economy?
Well, we understand that Washington is very reliant on trade with China. And first of all, we think that labeling China a currency manipulator is not necessarily a bad thing. We think that it would begin negotiations with them over its currency, and at some point down the road, if these negotiations don't work, then tariffs would be implemented. There could be a trade war if this happens, as China has held down their currency's value in order to keep their prices low, so our American manufacturers can't compete. Basically, what currency manipulation is when you purposely undervalue a currency, so the cost of production of an item is significantly cheaper than it would be somewhere else. Take, for example, a toaster that is able to produce in China for $5 and sold in America for $10. There's no way any American manufacturer can compete with that. So what it leads to is it leads to China having a much larger, exporting much more to the United States than they're importing from us. And we think that's a huge problem with the trade imbalance. We think that labeling them a currency manipulator would have an impact, as it would almost force them to begin to actually compete with us as opposed to developing a product for a much cheaper price. We don't think that implementing these tariffs would show we think that it does. We said we're not going to automatically implement the tariffs, but it will show that we are seriously considering and we are seriously upset about these actions that China has taken. Basically, China has also been using their ability to print money to buy up U.S. dollars and U.S. debt. That's another part of their currency manipulation, and that money really has no value. It floods the market with useless Chinese currency. As part of China's agreement with being a part of the IMF, we think that, part of being in the IMF is that you are not allowed to manipulate currency, as it's a violation of IMF membership, as it gives them an unfair advantage over other IMF members.
Thank you. Due to the length of the question, I'm going to repeat that again for the alternate side here. China is our largest single trading partner, but they're often described as an opponent. How will you respond to the trade imbalance between U.S. and China amidst accusations of currency manipulation and violations of intellectual property rights? What concerns do you have of China's continued military buildup? And how would a poor relationship with China affect the state of Washington's economy?
Okay. Every country manipulates its currency, not just China. Swiss National Bank has tried to keep its dollar weak against the euro. It's not just China. What United States could have done and already done is to label China as a currency manipulator. The place to fix this issue is World Trade Organization. Not the Congress, not the United States. It's the international problems. And what you're trying to do is to put tariffs on them. How about if they put tariffs back on us? 40% of Washington State's businesses are based on international trade. If they put tariffs on us, how many jobs will be lost in just this state? And you propose the Reagan economic zone, which will keep the China off, because the Reagan economic zone is the economic zone that every country that have the same minded could trade with each other. So keeping China off will piss them off. And pissing them off, if they start a war with us, the world will be in crisis and we'll go back to World War II. Thank you.
Okay, the next question will go to the Obama platform first. Latin America is increasingly coming into their own as far as manufacturing powerhouses in the various countries. And as the US, we have been increasing trade relationships and signing in free trade agreements. What are your intentions towards free trade agreements with Latin America?
I think this is an excellent question, and one I was sorry to see wasn't really brought up in the presidential debate, the third presidential debate. This is a big area of concern for President Obama. When he came into office in 2008, he laid down a very forward-looking and progressive plan for Latin America. Unfortunately, he kind of got caught because he did that too early and realized that he had to use the majority of his political capital to get his health care bill passed. And in doing so, he kind of neglected Latin and South America. And that made people resent us. But he's on the right path. They're still open to negotiations. And I think trade with these countries is going to be very important to the future of America. Now, what Obama wants to do is he wants to create allies. And I think that he realized about allies is they're not exactly like us. I get the feeling from Romney's perspective that he doesn't want allies. He either wants clones or slaves, people who will do what we say or look exactly like us. Otherwise, he won't do business with them. Obama is more open. He's more compromising in that regard. He believes we can do business with people who have different cultural values than we do. And he's open to engaging in that. Part of his policy is relaxing the embargo on Cuba and incorporating them into these debates more. And we've seen Latin America and South America both respond positively to that involvement. I think if you continue down this path with another 4 years, you're going to see drastic economic growth in that region with good American ties. And if we don't get too involved, if we let them develop on their own and take the long view, this could be very prosperous for the entire continent, both continents.
And to the Romney side, same question.
It might be true that the President Obama has laid out a plan to continue promote negotiate the free trade agreement with Latin America, but the President Obama had vested for 3 years to present free trade agreement with our allies like Colombia, Panama to the Congress for ratification. Therefore, it allowed the anti-American movement to continue to make the security, democracy, and free market economy to be under threat. Romney will launch campaign for economic opportunity in Latin America to promote democracy, free trade, and build on benefit conferred by trade agreement reached with Panama, Colombia, as well as those already in force with like Chile, Mexico, Peru, and the members of Central America Free Trade Agreement. The goal for the campaign will be set the stage for eventual membership in REGAN Economic Zone for nations in Latin America. The REGAN Economic Zone will create mutual beneficial economic ties between the region and United States. The campaign will aim to promote trading in the region. It will draw a stark contrast between the free trade, the free enterprise and yields of the Bolivian, the anti-American movement. The campaign will seek to involve both U.S. and Latin America private sector in effort to expand trade throughout the region. This will result in creation of jobs in America. It will also help Latin America company invest and create jobs in American market.
Okay, thank you. For near 12 years now, the United States have been in a state of war with troops over in the countries of Iraq and or Afghanistan. Not too long ago, our troops were pulled out of Iraq, and we are now, both candidates, planning on removing troops by 2014 from Afghanistan. We have seen, however, significant violence continue in Iraq, potentially destabilizing the government that's there. Should anything be done differently with what's currently taking place in Iraq as far as U.S. support is concerned? And how will that affect expectations for how Afghanistan will be handled, specifically with the financial support also that the U.S. provides these two governments?
Yes, things should have been done differently because President Obama had failed to reach the new Status of Force Agreement, or which also called as SOFA. Although the Obama side has claimed that Obama has ended the war in Iraq, but it's not really the end of the war in Iraq. When our troops left Iraq, it continued to be a civil war in Iraq, and it's not a good thing to do because in 2007 the surge troop successfully provided security to the population and granted space in time for Iraq, and by leaving and not continue to reach the new Status of Force Agreement, it allowed the tourism to fight against the democracy in Iraq that we have been trying to promote. And what Mitt Romney will do is that he will use diplomatic, economic, and military policy to establish a lasting relationship with Iraq, to push back on Iranian influence, promote institution of liberty, and guarantee that Baghdad remained as a solid partner. So we will continue to help Iraq to maintain, to prevent Iranian from its influence, to promote the liberty and guarantee that Baghdad remain as a solid partner. Thank you.
To the Obama platform, you have 2 minutes.
When considering the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's important to remember that these are wars that President Obama inherited from President Bush. President Obama was against them from the beginning, unlike Mitt Romney, who supported our invasion of Iraq. That being said, the mess that he inherited had an ending planned by President Bush, the reduction of troops, and he tried to do that as best he could. I mean, we went into this country with no exit strategy, and that's apparent because when we left, the house is burning down. To say that it's Obama's fault or he should have done more, I think is highly, it doesn't give good credence to the situation he inherited. Now, personally, I've served a tour in Iraq. I was there from 2004 to 2005, training the Iraqi soldiers to stand up for themselves. We've given them ample time and ample opportunity to demonstrate their capacity to do this on their own. There is no more reason for our troops to be there, and it wouldn't do any good to send them back. or to have taken longer to get them out. With the financial support, that we're going to need to do for a while because they just don't have a way of standing up on their own quite yet. But that being said, we'll use our economic ties to them to ensure that they have a partnership with us going into the future. But increased military presence is not an option. And with delaying the withdrawal of troops would not have been good either. I mean, the only thing we all knew was that we voted Obama in on his promise to get us out of the war in Iraq. And we also know the Iraqi people didn't want us there anymore. So overstaying our welcome would hinder our ability to use military force in the future with other countries. Now, Afghanistan, that war was mishandled from the beginning. And in fact, we took resources away from it to pursue our agenda in Iraq. When Barack Obama got into power, he sent more troops back to Afghanistan and tried to strengthen that country and prepare it for us to leave as well. He's got a plan in place for us to be out by 2014, and I think, again, that is ample time and ample amount of resources spent trying to get the Afghanistan people to be able to govern themselves.
Thank you. The next section are going to be questions that are directed from either side of the table. They were submitted to me prior to this event. The side that the question are directed to will have 1 minute to respond. Then both sides will each have a 30-second reaction. The first question is to the Obama platform. Bearing in mind the instability in Iraq, why did you withdraw the troops in Iraq when you did? And did that lead to unnecessary deaths in Iraq?
Well, as I just said, I don't believe staying any longer would have done anyone any good. And Obama has gone on record as saying this war was a mistake from the beginning. So I think it's safe to say that the 100,000 civilian casualties in Iraq are already needless deaths. So to say we're adding more now because we didn't get out properly is just false. It's not fair to us. And I think that what you need to keep in mind is Obama is on a path of peace. He's trying to reduce America's military presence around the globe to ensure better economic opportunities for us as far as negotiation. It's not always about carrying around a big gun with you and showing it to everybody when you ask for things. Sometimes you have to use better means, more intellectual means, and Governor Romney doesn't seem to understand that.
The Romney platform, your response.
Well, that strategy didn't work because the day after the withdrawal of U.S. troops at the end of last year, Iraq's prime minister took actions to consolidate power. He leveled terrorism charges against the Sunni vice president, which caused the vice president to flee the capital and sparked a political crisis that continues to this day. Iraq still faces worrying attacks, as well as the invasion of Iranian influence in Iraq as a threat to our interests in the region. They're currently granting their own airspace as Iran's ships arm and assist the Assad regime in Syria. We don't want that at all. We're trying to do everything we can to prevent prevent Assad from staying in power. By having an ally closer to them to help them, we don't like that at all.
And your response.
Okay, let me say about Syria. Syria, the hate that they have was longer than, it's been centuries that they hated each other. It's like the problems that happen in North Ireland, the Protestants and Catholic and Protestants, they hated each other. And U.S. Army going in there will be like the British troops going in there. Will create another bloody Sunday.
Thank you. The next question is directed from the Obama platform to the Romney platform. You want to increase military spending specifically by building up more ships for the Navy. How do you justify increased spending on the most powerful Navy in the world instead of using that money to pay down the $16 trillion debt?
We believe that protecting life is more important than some deficit. We will use our increased military spending to protect our allies in the Middle East. As we discussed before, we believe that having a ship presence in the Middle East, in both the Mediterranean and the Gulf, will be more of a deterrent to Iran in their pursuit of a nuclear weapon. As well, we want to use our increased naval presence to keep open trade routes in Asia from either pirates or other countries' powers that may decide that they would like to influence or affect the trade routes that we have. As well, we want to use some of that money to assist Syria in their overthrowing of their oppressive dictator. And as I said before, we think that lives are more important than some deficit, and we will use that money to save lives.
The Obama platform, your reaction.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but it doesn't justify keeping FEMA open, huh? Anyway, I think the thing about we're going to decrease military spending. That's the short of it. We no longer need to keep this Cold War mentality. We don't believe in that budget, and we're not going to support it. We need to make a slimmer military that's more able and adapt to attack our real enemies, which are al-Qaeda. They're not complete nation states. These are isolated malcontents that we take out with drone strikes and with precision ground assaults. We don't actually take over and conquer and hold land. It didn't work in Afghanistan. It didn't work in Iraq. And it's not going to work in Iran if you vote this guy into power.
Romney platform, your follow-up.
Iran is a nation state. It's not al-Qaeda that's developing nuclear weapons. It's Iran. And as far as FEMA goes, this isn't a debate on domestic policy. This is a debate on foreign policy. International lives are what we're talking about here. We're not talking about domestic policy. I lost my train of thought. It kept interrupting me.
Okay, the next question will be directed to the Obama platform. This is submitted from the Romney platform. How does your administration plan to discontinue the advancement of the nuclear program in North Korea?
We've already taken steps to do this. One of the things that Obama has accomplished is the agreeing to the START treaty with Russia to reduce nuclear arms. And that's important because it's shown a commitment to the non-proliferation movement that Obama is a full participant in and supporter of. By doing that, we got there. They didn't vote for UN sanctions against North Korea, but they just abstained. They didn't obstruct it. And I think that's a great movement where we show that even our allies or our frenemies, you might call them, are willing to allow us to use this doctrine to isolate and diminish North Korea's capability. It's only a matter of time. I mean, these people are starving. Eventually, they're going to have to cave. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to create a situation in which they feel the only way out is with a bang, literally. So what we want to do is we want to keep the door open for them to always be able to come to us, give up their nuclear program, and be accepted back in the mainstream world. And time to time, we're going to get embarrassed doing that, but it is the way to go if we want to truly prevent North Korea from using these nuclear weapons.
The Romney platform, your reaction.
President Obama's action earlier this year didn't make it clear that the United States didn't want to support North Korea in any way. Although we know that North Korea had been continued to advance their nuclear programs, but earlier this year, that President Obama granted North Korea a food aid, due only to see the deal violated a week later when North Korea conducted a missile test, and that's not a good sign that we are going to make it clear that we don't want to support North Korea, although they're advancing the nuclear program.
The Obama platform, your response.
As I said, keeping that door open will be difficult at times, and it will seem slightly embarrassing. That missile test that he's talking about also violated 2 UN sanctions independent of our agreement about sending them aid. And if anything, I think their launch of that missile demonstrates to the rest of the world that even when America offers them a decent proposal of just basic food items in order to reduce their military, they still reject it. They still go out on their own and they act rogue. And that strengthens our position against them and encourages our allies to stand with us against them.
The next question is from the Obama platform, directed to the Romney platform. You've promised to declare China a currency manipulator on your first day in office. What punitive actions will you take against China, and how do you see China responding?
Well, first of all, as we talked about before, we don't think that labeling China a currency manipulator would make it immediately a trade war. We think that it would start the road to negotiations on them stopping to devalue their currency. As far as other steps we can take against China, we could not allow them to join the Reagan Economic Zone, which codifies the principles of free trade at the international level and places the and places the issues now hindering trade and services on intellectual property crucial to American prosperity and that of other developed nations. We believe that by allowing countries to be in the Reagan economic zone, it will entice them to want to agree to the rules and restrictions set in place of being a member of that zone. When these open and innovative economies come together, the dynamic of the Reagan economic zone would draw in all countries, and it would help all these countries benefit.
The Obama platform, your reaction.
All right, once again, Governor Romney has resigned to just call them names and then not actually take any action as if that's going to make our situation any better. And also, to say that you won't allow China to enter the Reagan economic zone goes in direct contrast to what the concept behind the Reagan economic zone is. It's free for all to join as long as they agree to rules that they'll all play by. And we're assuming that these rules will exclude China and they won't be willing to sign. But should they ever come to us and agree to join, preventing them so just because they're China seems to run counterproductive to the entire idea behind that.
The Romney response?
It wouldn't just be us restricting China, it would be all the other countries that are in the economic zone that would not, if China's not agreeing to the rules that all the other countries have, then they would not be allowed to work in this economic zone with these other countries. So I think that China would be more than willing to accept these responsibilities and rules of being in the zone so they can work with all these other countries in order to help themselves and to help their allies as well. This isn't just about calling China names. It's about promoting jobs, it's about promoting innovation throughout the world, and promoting a relative trade alliance with a lot of the world.
All right, thank you. If the debaters would like to take a short break, drink of water, we have been researching this subject for a good number of weeks, and we'd like to take an opportunity to include audience questions towards these various two different platforms. So if anybody has any questions they'd like to direct to one camp or both, we are happy to turn over the mic, or we can turn in written questions over to, we have various helpers coming around.
Could either side explain what the Reagan economic zone is?
What it is it's a set of rules and regulations that countries abide by in order to establish more innovative sharing of ideas, technologies, resources, in the belief and the hope that by sharing these technologies, resources, whatever, that it'll strengthen the economies of various countries.
All right, thank you. We have a written question, but
Sufficiently? It's free trade. It's a free trade agreement, yeah.
It is something like ASEAN, where they have free trade zone within the Asia, Southeast Asia.
So when you say zone, is it in a specific area or is it global?
It's global.
It's global, but excluded countries that doesn't have the same minded like the
That won't abide by the rules.
Okay, so we won't trade with
China because they're not.
okay, thank you. We did have one question turned in, but we can't quite, you got it, great.
The question that someone posed was talk a little bit about immigration policy, foreign policy, and how, well, basically they want to know how your immigration policy, which is both domestic and foreign policy, integrates into the way in which you're going to enter, the way in which you would view the U.S. interacting with the world.
Okay, 1 minute each side. Romney side, go ahead.
We do like the idea of people coming here to study, so student visas we're definitely in support of. That way they can take a lot of the cultures and ideas that they learned while studying here back to their countries and maybe help those countries adapt ideas that will make them more successful. As far as permanent immigration goes, we are in favor of self-deportation, which I'm sure you're all aware is when immigrants who are here illegally agree to leave on their own. We think that people who are here illegally taking advantage of the programs and the services offered to real citizens. It not only costs us a lot of money, they're simply just taking advantage of our programs.
I think our immigration policy is key to our economic standings with Latin and South America. I think this is a huge topic for us. Obama is trying to restructure our immigration policies. He wants to provide a way for people to get here legally in the numbers that they seem to be wanting to get here anyway. Romney wants to make it so bad here that you self-deport yourself, that after taking all the risk to get here, we don't provide you any services whatsoever and treat you like you don't actually exist. That doesn't seem like a way to encourage other countries to believe us when we say we respect them and that we hold their values dear. This is just another sign of it's our way or the highway, and I don't think that's a way to get things done. Obama will open our borders more, he'll make better paths to citizenship, and he won't just deny people basic rights because they happen to get here illegally.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
So I have a question for Governor Romney. You said that lives are more important than reducing the deficit in America. So what you're saying is that we shouldn't be looking out for our future generations over some people that are not citizens of the United States, that we should put citizens of other countries before our own citizens?
I never said we should put other people's lives before the lives of our own citizens. I just said that deficit reduction is not an important issue to tackle right now when there are all these lives being lost throughout the world due to various oppressive regimes and terrorist organizations and other things that we can combat. Deficit reduction is an important issue. It's just not something we're going to tackle immediately. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to protect lives, and then we can move on to deficit reduction.
By spending more money? Spending more money to protect those lives so we have a bigger deficit?
There are programs that we're going to cut to in order to reduce the deficit as well.
Ones that provide for Americans here, like FEMA.
Okay. I can't really answer that question. I didn't research anything about domestic policy to do this debate. So to give me a question like that is pretty unfair. And if he put you up to it, that's even more messed up.
The Obama platform, do you have a response to this question?
We disagree. We think the deficit is a huge problem. We think our foreign policy is contingent on having a strong America at home. All of our policies are based on our strength and our projected strength. And with increased credit rate that we're running a deficit of credit. We're taking out bigger loans than we can actually pay back. And at the rate we're going, we cannot sustain it, and eventually people will cut us off. We need to deal with this problem immediately, and we don't need to give tax breaks to the wealthy and then spend more on our military and say the deficit is a problem for another day.
We have a question to the Obama platform on Iran. If Iran does develop a nuclear bomb and the means of delivery, what is your next step?
That's a lot of what-if scenarios there. I think initially we are committed to preventing them from getting a nuclear bomb. And because we're choosing to pursue this in an economic fashion, that's just showing that we've learned from the mistakes of Iraq and Afghanistan. You can't get some things done with ground forces. And threatening them with even bigger guns to dissuade them from getting a bigger gun doesn't make any sense. So what we need to do is work together as a global community, show the entire world that this is bad for them, that a nuclear rogue Iran is bad for everybody. And collectively, we'll stop them from getting it. Now, if what you're saying, if we fail to do this on multiple levels and they develop nukes, that's something that we're going to have to discuss with Israel, because our protection of Israel is unquestioned. A threat to them is a threat to us and vice versa. And we will definitely work with our allies in the region to make sure that is not an outcome that will happen. Yeah.
To the Romney side. On Iran, what, if any, is your line in the sand at which point you'll consider a military option?
Well, first of all, we are in favor of putting nuclear interception technologies, proven nuclear interception technologies in place in both Poland and Russia. The Obama campaign, before they recanted on that belief, tried to use technologies that didn't even exist yet to try to prevent nuclear weapons from being launched on Europe and Israel. And what we would do is we would put these proven technologies in place. The original deadline was 2020 to have these programs and these systems put in place. But instead of 2020, we would put it in immediately if this kind of technology is developed and we have awareness of it being developed and the potential of it being used.
Okay, this is a question to the Obama side. You said that you wanted to decrease spending on military spending, but Obama never said that he was going to decrease military spending. In fact, he said that he never would, and that it was an idea proposed by Congress, not by him, and he opposed it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. I didn't mean to say he's going to decrease the level. I meant to say he's not going to increase the level. They have, right now, the policy is a floor of 4% of our gross domestic product. Obama is willing to let that sink below that perceived floor. So it's not that he's going to dock the pay now. He's just not going to give them the increases that it would require to maintain over 4%. Does that clarify? Okay.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? We'll have the microphone over here. We're recording.
Obama side, when you were talking earlier about opening the borders to more immigrants, I had just read that Obama has increased deportation of, I'm assuming, of immigrants or illegals. So I was wondering, that seems like that's kind of in contrast of what he says he's going to do.
Okay. Again, maybe I was too general in what I was speaking about. What I meant to say is Obama is much more flexible than Governor Romney when it comes to giving people a legal path to citizenship in this country. And I, like my opponent over there, did not research the domestic policies well enough to be able to answer full and clear, but I do know that Obama believes in a world community in which we respect each other. And part of that is respecting other people, other nations' peoples coming here and giving them a way to do that legally, and not just shutting the door and building walls. And the Arizona law about, well, I don't think. Anyway, I digress. Obama will be more flexible in that regard, is the main point I was trying to make.
All right, I'd like to thank the audience for their questions. We are going to go to the concluding arguments from both campaigns. We'll start off by giving 3 minutes to the Obama campaign to conclude the debate.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This was a very informative debate. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In closing, I just want to say that, in my opinion, President Obama represents a path forward. He represents a change in the fundamental attitude of America, where we'll still be a world leader. We're still going to be a powerful, powerful nation, but we're going to work with our allies, not just tell them what to do. We're not going to impose our will in places where we're not needed. We're going to try to create a global community in which there are no senior partners and junior partners, but just equal partners. I think that a vote for Barack Obama is a vote for peace. You've heard my opponents say time and again that the thing that's lacking from our diplomatic missions and our international relations is military force. I don't see how that's going to accomplish the goals that he's talking about. Preparing for peace by showing everybody war is just a system that's not going to work. It's a Cold War mentality that is no longer applicable in the modern day. I think a vote for Mitt Romney is a vote to step backwards, to go back towards the Bush era, to go back to this neoconservative idea that America is the greatest nation on the planet. It will never crumble like Rome. We're immune from those kind of problems, and we'll just get everybody to do what we want to do or kill them. And that's what they've been promoting. They want to, I'm going to digress a little bit. Many people are frustrated with Obama because he gave all kinds of lofty promises to get into office. But I think he's consistently taken opportunities to pursue that path, and they're not giant leaps and bounds forward. They're small, pragmatic steps that allow us to move forward and backward. And this flexibility, while at times is very frustrating and seems to alienate our allies while strengthening our enemies, is really not the case. I think as a global community, we're really taking steps forward, and Obama is centered to that. And in summation, I believe with Obama, we're all in this together. That's the motto. And with Mitt Romney, you're on your own.
Thank you. To the Romney platform, you have the last word.
The all on your own reference is more of a reference towards people in the United States in terms of letting the government get out of their way. I don't think that's more of a reference to foreign policy. As far as foreign policy is concerned, we are much more concerned about working with our allies, working with other countries that need our help, working with countries that are trying to overthrow oppressive dictators like Syria, as opposed to just giving the responsibility to the UN and agreeing with the UN in what they do. The only way that we're going to help out in Syria is by helping the rebels themselves. And then when a new government that is actually democratically elected is put in place, standing behind that new democratically elected government. As far as we're going to kill you if you don't get out of our way mentality, that's not true at all. We just want to prevent countries, unstable, mean, bad countries like Iran and North Korea from arming themselves with nuclear weapons that can kill millions of people. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, it will create an arms race in the Middle East, which will lead to an even more unstable region becoming even more unstable. A nuclear Iran is a frightening, frightening, frightening possibility to the entire world. And the only way to prevent that is by showing our military power to them, putting all our cards on the table. With Iran, the way they are going, they have not stopped their military, their pursuit of a nuclear weapon. All that these economic sanctions have done is made them more defiant towards the rest of the world in terms of preventing from get this weapon. The only way to stop them is by using our force as the largest country, as the largest military in the world. North Korea tested a nuclear weapon that blew, or a ballistic missile that blew up on launch. And we continue to give them food aid after they try to launch a missile. They launched one over Japan 3 years ago, yet we have done nothing to prevent North Korea from continuing their development of a nuclear weapon. But the only way to stop these countries from arming themselves and hurting us, our allies, and other people around the world is to go after them, to put all our cards on the table once again. Thank you.
All right, thank you to both teams. I'd like to give a particular sense of accomplishment to both teams for having put down your own personal opinions and having tried best to represent the platforms for which you're arguing to provide a better service to the 70-some people that came here for you individuals to speak in front of. So I'd like to give a round of applause. So as Bob Francis mentioned, we are a club that has been very active on campus for over 25 years. We meet this year, every Friday at 12:45 over in the room 9201, which is on this floor at the end of the hallway. We do believe that it's important to talk about national, international topics, and we do believe that we can make a difference. Even locally at the school right now, this club is trying to advocate for student authority and student voice and the student impact into the school at which we are a part of and that services us. Kampong Tuisak, the student body president, has been advocating that the Board of Trustees create a student trustee position. And we are supporting him in that as part of our club, and we encourage everybody to take the time to listen to the topics that are out there, learn the opinions and the perspectives that are present, and make your own choices. So I'd like to thank everybody here for coming and being aware of the issues that are out in the world and perhaps learning a little bit of what they can do to change it and make it a better place. Thank you.